recovery group will fill those gaps. And that is a process. But again, one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you hear the name long-term recovery group, it doesn't happen it won't happen tomorrow. It's a process. Right? So, and I'm very thankful to my partners in the Delaware GOAD who's worked with me throughout the disaster.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to hear that group is there. That's wonderful.
Can you give us the date and time for that next meeting?
Yes, it's December the 8th, 7 p.m. at the warehouse.
Thank you. And it's open to everyone?
Anyone.
Okay.
Anyone. Yes.
Madam Chair, can I just ask him a quick question?
Yes. Councilman Harlan.
Mr. Patrick, so are you saying that the information from the SBA have already been distributed to those residents? I'm only asking that question so we don't have to duplicate efforts.
Councilwoman Harvey, so that information was disseminated to those who attended the long-term recovery group meetings, right? So no, so it wouldn't be duplication of effort.
It would not. Right. Thank you.
No, not at all.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the public? Mr. DeMarquis, pardon me?
We do have one question online as well. We have one comment online as well.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Dart. Do you want me to go online first?
Yes.
Okay.
Easier for
So what's the name of the...
Cheyenne Miller.
Oh, Miss Miller, you may speak. Are you on mute, Miss Miller?
She's got another meeting at 6:30.
That's like 2 minutes. Oh. Cheyenne? Okay, well, I'll...
There she goes.
I was just given the ability to unmute.
Okay.
I apologize for that. In regards to the flood victims, a letter was sent to several people in regards to the fact that these are homeless people. And I was hoping that I could read this letter before I have to leave soon. Is that possible?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So this letter is addressed to the mayor, the elected city council members, as well as Director Eugene Young at the Delaware State Housing Authority, Reach Riverside, Delaware Department of Health and Social Services, and some of our state representatives as well, and some of our federal representatives. In September, Northeast Wilmington was hit with catastrophic flooding from Hurricane Ida. Hundreds of homes were destroyed and many families were displaced. To date, more than 30 families from Northeast Wilmington are still homeless. That number may or may not be higher because we don't have accurate counts of how many people are actually homeless, and neither do any of the agencies we've spoken with that are addressed in this letter. Although some of these families have received assistance with cleanup and charity, a lot of them won't be able to return to their homes until well into 2022, and some might not be able to return at all. But the state of Wilmington, the state of Delaware and the city of Wilmington have received millions of dollars in federal aid. So we're urging Mayor Mike Przicki and City Council and many others to collaborate with state agencies, local developers to place residents into permanent housing. And while we understand that the city is facing a shortage of housing, there are still some newly built apartments across the city that might be able to house these residents, such as places like the Residence at Midtown Park near Market Street, 2000 Pennsylvania Avenue, the Cooper Apartments near the riverfront. Unfortunately, many of the displaced residents have limited incomes and they can't afford market rate housing without some form of assistance. And so in this letter, there's a proposal that the Przicki administration collaborates with developers, private landlords, city and state agencies to provide access to the existing market rate units. They can use city and state funding, including the American Rescue Plan funds and the Delaware Housing Assistance Program funds, to pay for the full cost of rent for the year, including the cost of the security deposit for each displaced family. We know that the city of Wilmington is going to get more than $55 million from the American Rescue Plan, and they've already received at least $27 million. The Delaware State Housing Authority has received $200 million for the Delaware Housing Assistance Program, and Reach Riverside has received $25 million from the American Rescue Plan as well, and that came from the state. So what can happen is, by partnering with private landlords and developers, we can place each family in an available unit for 1 year, and DHSS can actually provide those families with the wraparound services they need, like employment assistance and financial planning. And because we're asking to be placed in market rate housing, once that money runs out, those families will not be able to afford and stay in that housing. So we're recommending that once these units are being finished built, that they place these residents in Reach Riverside units. Reach Riverside is creating hundreds of new mixed income housing units in the Riverside neighborhood. And while some of the low income units are already allocated, we're urging that Reach Riverside ensures that the displaced families have access to the units that are finished in the first phases of the project, which may mean transferring a portion of the market rate units into affordable ones. You can subsidize this using American Rescue Plan funds. Many public taxpayer dollars through the form of tax breaks, reimbursement programs, public-private partnerships have been provided to developers across the city to create market rate housing. But a lot of the families from the city cannot afford to live in that housing. So it's very important that we get support from city council, the mayor, everyone, to use the relationships we have with these developers and use the American Rescue Plan funds and other federal funds to house these people.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. You've gone over your time, so I'll give you a couple minutes just to make the final statement.
That's my final statement, just what was written in that letter.
Okay, would you email me a copy of the letter, please?
I can, thank you.
Oh, we already have a copy, and I may have one in my email box. But you don't have to do that. We have a copy, and administration, staff will forward me a copy. Thank you for Thank you for your input. Are there any other individuals on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we're going to DeMarquis, Mr. DeMarquis.
I support Cheyenne's resolution, her proposal, and I support many of the speakers and their ideas. The SBA has been good to me as far as information and guidance, direction. SBDC at University of Delaware, Dave Baldini down there, has helped me with my business. My concern when the Director of Emergency Management in Wilmington, Willie Patrick, told me that he was going to be going out and letting people know that the SBA is going to be helping them out, these homeowners, these residents, these people that rent, these people that had just experienced crisis, was that these aren't business owners, most of them. They're not people that own businesses. So why is it that the SBA is going to be giving out loans? So I'm thankful that, I'm sorry, what was the name again?
Ms. Cook?
Ms. Cook. I'm thankful that Ms. Cook let us know that the loans aren't expensive money. They are, that it's money that can be paid back if you are approved for it. But I couldn't agree with letting people that had experienced crisis and was still in danger, people that was still living in sewage, because that sewage backup, that water backup, that did happen in Northeast Wilmington. We thank God that nobody died in Northeast Wilmington, but people were seriously affected. And that injury, that long-term damage is going to affect them. The trauma that they've lived through is going to affect them mentally, spiritually, emotionally for a long time to come. It was a disaster that happened on September 2nd, and the recovery still is a disaster, and we need for the city to do more to help the people that live in our city to have just basic human rights and